what do you think is next for you? A run for office? What do you have in the books that are in storing your mind?
Well, thank you, Cole. You're very encouraging. We should have defined the scope of the questions. Because I was imagining it being limited to, my past, not my future, and the book. But Cole, you're a dear. Thank you. I don't know, but so Brian Blair for the Republic put out an article over the weekend about this event, and he interviewed Matt Shadd, the attorney, and they cut out a lot from his articles. There was more in there, but what they did keep was only a few things from really just one thing from Matt. And it was, you never know what he's going to do next. So I don't know, but I know here's the thing, Cole. I was telling Martin over there, lovely to see you here, that this book has been incredibly time-consuming for me, and I'm very happy to share it with the world. But I am a lawyer, and so I'm trying to manage my responsibility as well. And so right now, those are the things. It's my family. I mean, I've got 4 beautiful children that are growing up like lightning speed, and then I've got work, and then the book is an extracurricular thing. So, but thank you. I appreciate it. It's an encouragement for you to ask.
Will prophecy ever then be a clock, your clock?
Yeah. So this is a 3D model, an exact replica of my natural skull today. So my skull was fractured upon impact, and they did a craniotomy to clean out the fractures, and so this was the end result after the accident. So this part is filled in with an artificial plastic type plate. So I don't set off metal detectors at the airport, but I do have architects sleeping on this side of my head. So that's what this is, and that's why there's a skull on this. And this is not the question you asked, but it placed under the skull because this cover was very intentional. Everything in the book is intentional. The headings, every single sentence, every word. I'm very meticulous with my writing, and Chelsea knows. I pulled at least 12 all-nighters writing this book. I wrote it in 10 months, and 600 hours, and I'm very intentional about what I did here. So the skull obviously represents the triumph, but also represents human fragility and the question of identity and a life beyond the objective world. Am I more than a brain? Am I more than a skull? So it grips you right there. But then you also see the shattered windshield, kind of shattered glass effect, which represents the actual collision I had with the vehicle, along with human identity and rebuilding yourself after almost losing yourself. And then, of course, the title and the headings are intentional as well. If you want to ask about those, I will answer that. But I'm not going to do this. I want to answer your questions.
Brett Fathauer, Cameron's father. So one question is, the time you were in high school doing all the lunch and learn activities, what do you say to people when they say you were doing so much for the Lord and guiding others? It's great to hear full sharing these experiences. Why would God allow something like this to happen to you? What have you shared with people when they ask you that question?
Yeah. Great question, Brett. Great question, Father. So it's interesting because that conference that I led that Bible study people were in preparation for, it did actually happen. So it happened the day it planned to happen. My father actually walked me up the stage with my helmet on October 31st, 2015. I left rehab way ahead of schedule. Dad walked me up the stage and I gave my presentation on why you can trust the Bible. And then other questions being asked were, why would a loving God allow evil, pain, and suffering in the world? So, it's cool because I was very into theology and apologetics and defending the faith and just understanding the things of God as a youth, which kind of prepared me for what was going to happen. If that makes sense. Like prepared mentally for the suffering that was coming. But Dad's asking a very age-old question that I can give a simple answer to. The answer is for the Word of God. But it's much more complicated than that because bad things happen to all of us all the time. And the question is not why did the bad thing happen to me, but why are there bad things in the first place? And the badness in the world, as I write in the book, is really a reflection of the badness inside of me. So the objective problems might just reflect a subjective problem. People wonder how I got better after my brain injury. And I say, by elevating my subjective problems over my objective ones. And by subjective, I'm referring to my personal problems, which only exist in relation to the eternal person, the one who's always been. And so I don't wrestle with the world around me primarily. I primarily wrestle with the God of the universe. So why did this bad thing happen? Well, I don't love that question because it did happen. The question for Cameron, the question for you, is not why did the bad thing happen to me? The question is, what are you going to do about it? Right? 1 Corinthians 4:6, one of my favorite scriptures, very simple. What do you have that you have not received? It's so simple, but so profound. What do you have not received? The good stuff in life, we're quick to accept it, right? You know, you win the lottery or your kid does well in school, you're like, yeah, I accept that. But what's the first stage of grief? Denial. The bad stuff we don't want to accept. But it comes in the exact same way. It just happens. The good stuff comes, the bad stuff comes. Life is ultimately about response. How am I going to respond to the things that come into my life? Am I going to bring them to God, or am I going to throw them on other people? So that's my simple answer is, it's not the best question. Well, because there is a historical, theological answer to it, but it's just not really the context. I'm not a theologian per se, but although some will say we're all theologians. But no, it's a great question. It's definitely something for other people to think through. But my initial response to that question is okay, it's really not about me, but it's about how I respond to the good things and bad things that come into my life. And the Christian answer is the same. Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow Him. It's the formulaic for life. So, that you don't slap every day. So, you know, they're Christian. Yeah, hi. Hey, Brooks, crazy mom.
That's me.
Yeah.
Brooks' crazy mom, I'm Susie. As you were speaking about going back and working with folks, representing them through traumatic injuries as well, or accidents, how are you able to, and it's probably in the book, I haven't read it yet, but how are you able to continue to keep going back to that trauma again and again, even though it's not your own, but reflecting on what's happened to someone else? How do you get through those triggers?
No, wonderful question. So Brooks' crazy mom, I'm gonna say that because she told me to write that in the book. When I signed the book. So what is your real name? Susie, okay. Great question, Susie. So normally when people do book signing events, they have reading time, like book reading, and I'll actually read to answer your question. If that's okay with the audience. I think you're supposed to snap it. It's like, I started off with a poem. You guys didn't snap it. And by the way, you guys are going to ask Paul Ferguson questions as well.
She,
He's just up here looking at it.
control.
That's great. All right, so it's in chapter 5. If you have your book, you can open it with me. So it's page 111, a subjective report. I was down more than I was up. 50% of the days between September 2015 and January 2018 were difficult, emotional days. I screamed, I cried, and I split my arms. But everything only got worse after I entered law school. My skin felt like it had things crawling up inside of it, trying to get out. It was me who wanted out of me. Everything on the outside was great, beautiful family, beautiful wife, beautiful future, but everything in me still wanted to die. I am still affected by the trauma of those years. Some people have said that they do not know how I've done the things I've done and pushed through what I'm pushed through. I said that I do not know how I've kept going with everything that's been happening, that I do not know how I pushed through what I've gone through. If others are asking these questions, and I'm asking the same myself, then who has kept Cameron going? It happened on an imprecise day in the winter of 2021. I was on my way home after studying for the bar exam, driving down Grant Line Road in Walden, Indiana, about to turn right onto Chapel Lane. I contemplated slamming my foot on the pedal and crashing into a brick building a few hundred yards away. So much of me wanted to end it all right there, but an image of braveness flashed across my mind's eye. There was this 1% of light and in its brightness. The mental scene could be likened to have multiple windows open on a web browser. The dark window took up 99% of the screen, and a tiny window took up the remainder. I enlarged this window and focused in on it. I cannot tell you what I saw, but the landscape was bright, the view was glorious, and so many people were happy. Even though I saw this, it still did not feel worth holding on to my life any longer. My glory and the joy of others did not feel worth holding on for. So how can I make the right turn? A divine wager for my existence was handled in a matter of seconds. I did not hold on, but God moved me along. The intervening image is not what kept me from killing myself that day. The image provided did. That moment was not about returning right. It was about being held right. And since right I was held, so right I turned. Dad. I was just getting an idea for you. Go to the next paragraph, page 113, top paragraph. Some people have asked if I was religious before my accident. I tried to explain to them that I was actually keeping my faith when the accident occurred. The reason people ask the question is because they believe that incredible objects, like near-death experiences, awaken a person to faith in miracle. But the question hides behind an excuse for ending. Not because of God's absence, but because of the felt lack of God's work in the questioner's life. If God did that to me, then I would believe, is the unspoken premise of the question. Others have said, just get that, Susie, what you're asking. Others have said that I should be grateful to God for my recovery and have tremendous faith because of it. Of course, I am grateful for what He's done, but what exactly am I to be grateful for? I tell you, I'm more grateful for what he did for him at winter day in 2021 while driving home. And there are two reasons I say this. One is factual, the other conceptual. Factually, I entered into a 2.5-week long coma after the car crashed into me. I do not remember any of it. I do not remember any of it. There's your answer. Other people saw the miraculous object of my life. How I went from a legal coma to a legal career in less than 6 years. But I did not see it this way. How could I have? People are truly watching something I've never seen. Conceptually, as the person within the coma, I missed one of the most important elements of a story lifetime, the near-death experience. How can I be grateful for something I did not remember? The objective miracle was not missing for others. You guys saw it. You guys have seen the objective miracle of my life. But the subjective miracle was missing from me. Thus, I referenced that winter day. I felt the subjective experience most when the demon of depression was matched with divine intervention. When God put an image in my mind. When God carried me through the next term. This was a subjective moment because it was between me and God. This was a subjective miracle because it turned the believing that God is for me intellectually into experience. So, Susie, and this is a very important thing that I'll probably write in another book, because like the trauma of those 2.5 weeks while I was in the compound is a trauma you guys have experienced, especially my family and my wife. And it's a trauma I'll never understand. It's strange to think there were almost 3 weeks of my almost adult life that I just don't really with that. It's like I was on the skateboard, although I don't remember doing that, but I can imagine that. I was on the board, and next thing you know, I wake up and almost 3 weeks have gone by. I'm in a hospital bed, metal wood boards all around me, metallic casting on my right arm. What's going on? So it's not hard for me to talk about the accident. I'll go back to that time. Which is good because I'm able to share and reach into people and help them with where they're at, because I'm not afraid to open up. And there's a risk, of course, there's a risk like publishing a book like this, because we try to put up our objective presentation of our lives. David Brooks calls them in your resume virtues versus your eulogy virtue. Look how good the outside does. But I'm pretty raw in the book, and some of you approaching this book might be a little intimidated, and that's why I had the preface, and that preface is your guide. And it's literally titled, "You Can Read This Book." Because there's a lot going on, but the book's very human. It's very human, as one of my test readers put it. There's something in here for regardless of whether you're a religious person, Christian or not. It's a very human book. It's a long way to answer. Thank you, Susan.
Hey Cameron, I'm Brett, so this is the Brett mic.
I was going to make a joke.
Okay, there you go, beat you to it. Yeah, it's such a remarkable story is yours, and I'm learning more from you this evening. It's really wonderful. So my question is kind of twofold. One is, as a follower of Jesus, you believe that God is intimate, knowable, personal. So how have you, through this series of events, through these past number of years, how have you gotten to know Him better or differently? And the second part of the question is, how have you personally, your character, grown and changed in light of this event?
Great question. Not bad. See, I still made a joke. No, I'm incorrect.
Keys.
The first part is a question about how the injury and accident and recovery has allowed me, or maybe not allowed me, to grow closer to God. And it kind of gets back to first Brett's question, Dad's question. Because suffering can be a form of blessing in a world like ours. Some of you younger people here, you'll begin to understand how cruel the world is the older you get. And how the world, as I put it, is objectively unfair. So if there is equality, if there is fairness, it's subjective. And it's personal. And it's only subjective, it's only personal because there is a divine subject above all of us who's very personal himself. So the suffering it makes you, there's two ways to respond to suffering. And Job is the illustrator of that. Worship God, praise God for the pain, praise God for these things. Or Job's wife had another response. Curse God and die. And life really is full of dichotomies and binaries. It really is like black or white. So many things are just that simple. So the suffering happens to me, and what am I going to do about it? Am I going to put it on other people? Am I going to say, you guys need to fix my problem? And of course, it's good to have support, and I mean, that's why we all have different roles in society. That's great. But there's a difference between like blaming the problems on other people or other things when there is a problem that we can all work on, and that's the problem of ourselves. And it's personal growth, character growth, becoming more godly, those kind of things. And so suffering, what it does is it pulls you out of the fantasy of this reality, the objective reality as I characterize it. And, of course, the great exemplar of this is the symbol of the cross. And I mentioned it in the keynote because we don't put AK-47s on our buildings. I mean, there's some places that do that, but it's not a very popular thing to do. But here we are putting crosses on buildings. When historically speaking, a cross was seen as an object of capital punishment, a cruel and gruesome form of the torturous death. So, how did we go from that to now we just wear it proudly? We get it on our jewelry, we get a tattoo, like it's on our buildings. And how did that happen? And it's not because Rome altered how to crucify. It's not like they went from putting people on crosses like with nails to tying them up with laughing happy. It's not like it went from being this terrible object to a beautiful object on its own. It had been this subject that dealt with that object and conquered it. And so the same process can happen to all of us. The same procedure is meant to be lived out in our own lives, and denying self, cross, following Him. Because the suffering comes in your life, and instead of letting it rule over you, we're called to rule over it by power and grace of God and through His Spirit. But it really is a demonic, it's a powerful picture that's meant to be replicated. It has been replicated in many of our lives. You see it in, I guess, my life in certain ways, and you know other people, and you probably see it in your own life, where you look back and see how that terrible thing led to something great. And then you see, you're not the primary painter of this flag. Another way that analogy has been put is master weaver. You know, like weaving a picture, and from behind it looks crazy and just messy, but then you turn it around, you see this beautiful tapestry. So to the next question. So how it brought me to greater knowledge. Were you looking for a more practical answer? I'm very abstract minded, so sorry. Well, so that's why chapter 5 begins by saying, when I share my story with people, they're like, oh, you should write a book, or it'd be a great movie, especially the love, romance, falling in love with my fiance at the end. And I tried doing that years ago, but I found it kind of boring to talk about the things I achieved and just, yeah, that's what it's about. I'm much more interested in like the higher level of things that got my abstract thought, up in the clouds, I guess. So what this book did, though, is I took my personal experiences and traumas and all that stuff, and I used those things to illustrate deeper metaphysical, philosophical, theological, existential matters. And that's why the book should probably be reread at least one time over. I read it 7 times, and it still shocks me how it all fits together. So, because if I excel in this world and I never experience any pain, then I'm not going to see what everybody else is seeing and what everybody else is dealing with. That's what Chelsea told me. Chelsea has said, Cameron, the accident was good for you. And that sounds like a strange thing to say, but she says it rounded you out because, as Laura Daly knows, and you know a little bit, when I was, before the accident, I was on cloud 9. Everything was great. People call me the eternal optimist, and which motivated me and gave me confidence to do things like lead Bible studies, witness to people. But then the accident comes, and I found myself on another planet where now things are dark. Now I've got these evil, intrusive thoughts that I don't like, and I keep getting them away. And so Chelsea, when she says it was good for you, is because it rounded me out. Because now it's not Cameron's over here, having this great time while everybody else in the world is suffering and miserable and life sucks. It's like, no, I've been in the valley. I've been there for a long time. Long time relative to how old I am. And so things aren't what they seem. And so that's what I'm trying to do with that painting analogy. I'm trying to say there's a greater painter in all of life. It's not me, it wasn't Chelsea, but we played our parts in it. But ultimately, when it doesn't make sense, the key is to just hold on and hold on to him and keep trying for him. Because he's there. Because if he's not there, then I'm not there. Because then I'm just the other object. That's the whole thesis of the question of the book. Where is the human subject in a world full of objects? How am I more than this? How am I more than a brain? Because the brain injury gave the message of permanent discouragement. I couldn't do the things I used to be able to do. I didn't feel what I used to be able to feel. I hated who I'd become and missed who I was. But then I found someone I could be at all times, regardless of life's happiness. Put secondly, God. So I still didn't really answer your second question. So your second question was, because I was talking vertical towards God, learning God, and then was your other one about how it's more about myself?
Now that should pass immediately.
How about right? How about it? Well, I guess I kind of answered it because the rounding out, like there's a word that's very popular in our world today, the word empathy. And the difference between sympathy and empathy is you actually can relate to what someone else is going through. Whereas sympathy is more of a, like extending your arm. You are sympathizing, you are trying to relate to them, but you yourself don't have an experiential level of relation to what they're talking about. So, God forced empathy into my life by hitting you with that card. And I characterized it that way on purpose. Again, everything I wrote in the book was until you stop. Just hit that, that's the way it is. That God hit you with that card. Because if God didn't do it, who did? Like, it's so much more encouraging for me to realize the sovereignty of God in the events of life. Because life is crazy sometimes. But to know there's not just, to know there's someone who's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. It's like, that's where I can hold on. Because everything else changes, man. That's the beauty of marriage. Because marriage is the one opportunity you really have to, like, know somebody. Because, like, high schoolers, like, you graduate, people go off to college, everyone goes their separate ways. You have some friends at school, and college is 4 years or so, and you move on, and none of these relationships stick. But in marriage, you're saying, you're mine, so you cannot yours. And it sticks. It's meant to stick. And in the book, I talk about a good amount about marriage, and I say it's the only subjective commitment available. Because it's a union of who's, not a union of what's. It's not I did or I will do, it's I do. That's the matter. So, yeah, so I'm very thankful because I have had some clients. Never in, but one time. The guy was like, you got married to T? He almost tried to like make me feel bad. Like, oh, that was a bad decision or something. I'm like, no, man, like I got better because of Jessica Fathauer. Yeah. And God used her to hold me through all the insanity that I actually got to work. And that's what I'm trying to get at in the keynote. I don't know how much of it got through it, but did you notice how I thought I was the 18 my life? Okay. Then I found someone else to hate with me. So finally, rather human to commit my life subjectively, commit myself till death do us part. And Chelsea modeled those marriage vows before it even started. I'd push a wheelchair for the rest of my life. Like, it's just crazy. What 19-year-old girl's out there making that kind of commitment? But she did, and I praise God for it. But then it's movement from me as the painter to, okay, now we are painting, and then ultimately all these amazing things are happening. Oh, wow. There's someone painting far more marvelously than me. Because if I don't give credit to God for the things that have happened in my life, then I'm not really giving hope to any of you. You understand? Because if it's like, well, here, you gotta have this diet. You gotta do this exercise. You gotta take these supplements. You gotta wear this makeup, or these objective changes. Do this, do this, do this. And then you'll have my outcome. In that view, life is just a lottery. I could never play basketball with LeBron James plays basketball. No matter how hard I try. And so for me to give credit to a being far above myself, and not just not just an outlier being, but a being that's available to all of us, as Paul says, is a power near and dear. In him we live and move and have our being. He's not just the God of the flatwoods. He's the God who's not there. Does Cameron Fathauer want to be there? I don't do this event every year. I didn't have a vote last year, so no. But man, there's so much hope in that. And that's why the book reaches so many different people. It gets me into the legal profession, doing continuing legal education seminars on the book to lawyers in Indiana and Kentucky. And I'm doing things with brain-injury audiences and doing things here. And it's just so cool how the Lord has used this to reach so many different areas, because ultimately it is Him who's reached me, and He keeps reaching through the things He's done. Brett, you got me going.
You're out of all.
Good, it's up. Oh. My phone's off. Jordan Maurer, if you have the time. Oh, wow, awesome. Spring down. You guys are welcome to leave whenever now. But I'm happy to take questions, because originally I was thinking we have a few more people, and so I wasn't sure if I'd be able to sign all the books. I don't know if I signed them as books. I think there's some people that have to sign. But I'm happy to keep doing it, coming in until 9:30, however late you guys want. Or till that.
That and easy.
I guess if we don't have any other questions, Cam did say that he would be outside signing books, right?
Yeah.
And books are available for signing and purchase, he told me, until 9:45. Part of the proceeds from his books will be going to continued research around brain injury and trauma. And I think I'm just reminded again tonight that we serve an incredible painter, and he truly has painted an amazing story. And Jordan, that is certainly inspiring and encouraging as well. So thank you to everyone for being here tonight.
Thank you.